Hey everybody, thank you for coming to Landscape Rescue. My name's Stuart Moore, your humble hobo of horticulture. I have been all over the Springfield metro area, Lowe's, Home Depots, and I even went to 2 different Walmarts to see if I could find anything to talk about that I was going to be passionately talking about, and I couldn't find anything. Literally, I couldn't find anything I wanted to talk about. Nothing was blowing my skirt up. So I came to Nixa Hardware, where every single time I walk into this place, I feel like Marilyn Monroe, just trying to keep my skirt down. Because this is all reliable as far as I'm concerned. Walk through the front door, start seeing stuff I want to talk about. So let's get into it. First thing I bump into is a columnar birch right here. Columnar birch. And in the ground, this is probably going to be about 5 feet tall. This particular variety is called Parkland Pillar. Context clues tell us that it's a tall, skinny tree with the word pillar in it. Hardy to zone 3, heat zone 7. That's going to be real important with birches. 40 feet tall at maturity, 6 to 7 feet wide. And this is the Parkland Pillar. Anybody that's having issues with privacy, and we're talking about seasonal privacy, not all year privacy, right? If you're trying to shield a house, you need evergreen privacy. If you're trying to shield a pool or someplace you use on a seasonal basis, then you could get away with something like this columnar pillar. One of the things that I will caution you against birches, they like it to agua, okay? It says on the tag, medium water needs. I don't think you're gonna be able to, in July, August, September, gonna be able to give this too much water. I think it's just gonna take up water. I was watching a YouTuber, and I'm not going to say the name because I really like this guy. I consume a lot of content of landscapers, if nothing else, just to see how people are doing, right? Because I feel like I know them. He was talking about birches after the spring rain stops. So they put on leaves based on the amount of available moisture that they're having. And then once those spring rains stop, they defoliate. So they lose a lot of leaves, can't keep them hydrated. Remember, a tree is a business. Plants are a business. They are going to do what's best for the business. And if they can't support these satellite stores or the leaves, they're going to get rid of them. My question was, and this guy's very fire and forget, and you guys probably already know who I'm talking about. He just said they'll lose half their leaves in the summer because there's not enough available moisture. And then I thought, why not water them? I know, crazy, right? So I don't prescribe to that mental model, that mental business model when it comes to my plants, that I'm not growing plants in an artificially awesome environment. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have the best looking plants possible. So I fertilize stuff. I make sure stuff's inoculated with beneficial fungus and beneficial bacteria when I plant it. I water things. I'm not trying to create a landscape where I can go on vacation for 6 months and come back and it'll be alive. I'm creating a landscape where I can never go on vacation, because if I do, somebody's not going to water my birch tree and it's going to lose half of its leaves. Now we know what kind of channel we're watching. Now this beautiful birch tree, after my tirade, is $40. $40 for what I would say a 3-gallon probably, which I wouldn't consider a bad price because birches grow so fast. You can already look to see how much new growth this has put on just since it's leafed out, which has been that much new growth. I wasn't at the nursery where they were growing this, so I couldn't tell you how long it's been actually leafing out, but I can tell you that that's at least 1.5 inches worth of new growth. And we're still in April, end of April, but April nevertheless. To put that in perspective, here is a little 2-gallon Yoshino Cherry. I mean, just a little tiny guy, well rooted in, for $34.74. It's about the same height. Columnar birches is only going to get 6 to 7 feet wide. I could put them on 7-foot centers or 6-foot centers just to be safe. As fast as they grow, get some pretty quick privacy out of them. I mean, for what, $3 more? Doesn't seem like a bad deal at all. Now, the Yoshino is going to be prettier, but birches do have pretty fall color, so ish, kind of a sickly yellow. But when you don't have any fall color in your yard, sickly yellow is still yellow. All right, here is a Norway maple. This is a Crimson King. I really like the Norway maple. I think it's probably one of my favorites. They've got a lot of really cool varieties of Crimson style Norways. I had a Crimson Queen Norway maple, which leafed out purple until about midpoint in the year, and it turned this really dark, beautiful emerald green color. I really liked that. This is the Crimson King, which is an oldie but a goodie Norway maple, and it's purple pretty much all year long. And I think it brightens up a little bit in the fall, but it's easy to miss because there's not a huge change. In too much shade, the leaves will turn green. In a lot of sun, the leaves will stay dark purple. There was a bank that had like 15 or 20 of these kind of surrounding the bank, and it was just so beautiful. I loved the Norway. I loved driving towards that part of town so I could look at those. That's the Norway. Now these are in a 5-gallon Monrovia pot, $79.84, which isn't a bad price. I think in the ground it's going to be probably somewhere 7.5, 8 feet maybe. Yeah, that's the Crimson Norway. For $80, not a bad deal, especially if you only need one. Now, you're talking about you want to line your driveway with them, we might need to shop around a little bit. You know, if you're just needing one and you see it, grab it. Now, little slower growing Norways than, say, some of these red maples here. We'll look at this guy. What do we got here? Okay, this is an Autumn Blaze. Looks like it might be in a 20-gallon for $170. All right, $170 for this 20-gallon probably. It's gonna grow like it's on methamphetamines. Autumn Blaze maples, I believe, are crossed with the silver maple, so they grow really fast, but whenever something grows really fast, it's typically pretty brittle. That's a good way to think about the density of the wood as it forms. The slower it grows, the denser it's gonna be. It kind of is what it is. So that's a good way to think of it. I'm sure there's some exceptions. And if I sat down and thought about it, which I've had too many Mountain Dews, that's me sitting down is probably not gonna happen. I could think of some that grow fast but aren't brittle, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So that's the Autumn Blaze maple, and that's not a stellar price. I want there to be a little bit of caution when you're planting trees that are this big. I would wash the root ball. I'd detangle some roots, and then I would stake it when I planted it. The soil medium kind of washes out as things mature. That would just from rain and just that natural erosion of raindrops and things like that. They'll get the roots will start to show, and they always have a guy walking around with a wheel or with a trailer on the back being pulled by a gator or something like that, and he's just shoveling soil medium into this pot. Well, eventually, those roots kind of will surround and you lose the root flare itself, right? Because now you have roots kind of coming up. Now, with shrubs and perennials and things like that, it is never going to bother you. That will never be an issue. Not that roots won't come to the surface where the majority of the water is. It's just not going to cause you any problems. It will cause you problems with trees. There we go. I've said my piece. Here is a Shade Master honey locust. I'm a real big fan of honey locusts. One of the reasons we're gonna get into a little plant geekery. So if you need to get up and get a soda, I completely understand. This is one of the cooler leaves out there. So this is what a honey locust brings to the table. It's a bipinnate compound leaf, which means you have your petiole, which is this guy right here, and then you have little tiny petioles coming off of the actual, but this is one leaf. Okay, so this is one leaf. So the Shade Master honey locust is a great honey locust. I love the Shade Master. About 40 feet tall, I believe. Not huge, but very pretty just because of that bipinnate compound leaf. And I like how the shadows get cast, and I feel like it lets a little bit more dappled light in. They're easy to grow things under. The healthy shade-loving stuff is fine as long as it's not get blasted by too much radiant heat. So I've never had problems growing anything under them. I have had them sucker. The suckers had thorns on them. It might be something. And honey locust, how you remember the honey locust versus the black locust, is the honey locust has a honey of a thorn, right? Mentor of mine taught me that very easy way to remember that, and I've never forgotten it. So that was the Shade Master honey locust. Here is a Taylor juniper. Okay, so there's lots of columnar junipers out there. Junipers lend themselves very well to pruning, so creating something like a Spartan juniper, you have to trim to keep tight would be okay, like they're cool with it. If you let it go though, it is gonna kind of sprawl out and try to take advantage of market share. These are naturally, you don't really ever have to trim them. I like to trim them just to keep them tight and looking good. The Taylor is the closest thing that I can come to in my zone to a Italian cypress. So if you wanted that Italian cypress look, the Taylor juniper, and you're in zone 6, or what are we good to? We're good to, yeah, we're good to zone 3, all the way up to zone 9. So the Taylor is going to be a good option for that. I do like to shear them just to give them that tighter Italian cypress feel. I don't really think they're great for privacy. They're too thin. They will get scraggly on you, kind of. You know what I mean? Like this little guy here, I don't know, it's not giving me the look that I wanted. Something that gets 35 feet tall, 40 feet tall, and 3 feet wide doesn't look good scraggly. It looks good tight. Does that make sense? If I wanted something a little bit more wispy, I would go with a different type of juniper. What different types of junipers do we have? Here's some. I was gonna say skyrocket juniper or something like that, but sometimes those don't get tall enough. So look at this guy here. See this juniper? This is, oh, it's a skyrocket for 128, and they're gonna say 10 feet tall, 3 feet wide. So I can leave this wispy. It's a good evergreen anchor. I think somebody in the comments was asking what I thought about junipers. These look like they're in a grow bag. I would still cut that bag off, and I would still wash those roots really good, just to make sure I have a good root flare, right? I need that look to my trunk. But that, you know, that's an option for if I want more of an unkept landscape, if I want a less contrived look. Skyrockets are good about that. Taylors, they give me a very, especially from a distance, a very formal appearance. But just remember, they get big. So unless you're gonna get a scissor lift or something like that to trim the top out of it, to keep them a certain size, don't even risk it, get a skyrocket. I don't know. Yeah, it's saying 30 feet tall, 3 feet wide, versus 10 feet tall, 3 feet wide. You see? More shaped like a Hershey Kiss than a giant 30-foot tall pencil, because that's what these feel like to me. I've got a pair of Makita hedge trimmers that are on a pole trimmers, and I can just shear them up, no big deal. When I was doing maintenance on people's houses and they had Taylors, I would always clean up their Taylors, and I wouldn't even tell them or charge them for doing it. I just think it just makes everything look better. And maybe subconsciously they were like, boy, that guy really knows his stuff. What was his name again? Oh, I can't remember. Yeah, one of those deals. All right, here is a little blue Atlas cedar. And I wasn't gonna talk about blue Atlas cedars. You guys know what a blue Atlas cedar is. I don't have to talk about them, but I saw the picture, and we're gonna see if you guys can look at that picture. So in relation to the house, even on the picture of this, it's too close to the house. Even in the picture, it's too close to the house. Even in the picture, it's planted wrong. So no wonder people plant these too close to their houses. This is their inspiration. A $4,000 bill from a guy like me to come tear this thing out. So this one is, I don't know, in a little 2-gallon pot, and it's $48.74. Right on the tag, it says 40 to 60 feet tall, 30 to 40 feet wide. This thing is maybe at most 10 feet from the house. What a ridiculous, Shraggy Nursery, shame on you for putting that on your picture. Bunch of clowns. Okay guys, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I'm done busting people's chops. I'm done doing that today. So this is Hakanakloa, or Japanese forest grass. Now this is the Aurora variety, I believe. What is this? Golden, yes, Aurora. So it's Hakanakloa Aurora. Let's just say as I've gotten older, words have gotten smaller. I don't know why that is, but I don't know. Maybe when I was younger, I felt like words were bigger and way easier to read. This is going to be a great combination with hostas, bleeding hearts, things like that. I think they compete really well, but I keep them up front. So I keep them away from hostas, just far enough away. I like the contrast, right? So these beautiful wispy variegated leaves versus fat hosta leaves, right? Not to mention the fact green and yellow, it's very similar to a lot of things that we can find with hostas. You're not doing anything crazy. Hostas have, for the most part, white, light purple, dark purple flowers, which really works well with this as an opposite. This is the Hakanakloa Aurora. Then you also have the Hakanakloa All Gold. Yes, All Gold, which doesn't have the variegation, but is also very, very pretty. I know a lot of you guys watch Jess And I can't remember what video it was. Maybe it was like one of the first videos I saw, and she had kind of like an embankment covered with Hydrangea. And I was like, wow, that's really pretty. And that, you could tell right there that that landscaper, that gardener, had spent some time really dialing in the landscape because it was covered with that Hydrangea. I thought that was really pretty. Immediately, she gained my respect, just because I know that she's been at it a while, you know? And I think at the time she had like 1,000 subscribers or something like that. It wasn't like she hadn't built a huge empire, which in the gardening space, let's face it, there's only really a couple YouTubers out there that have gotten to the point where they've built an empire. I think all of us, for the most part, all of us smaller YouTubers are all kind of hanging out in the same general vicinity. I don't know. There's so many amazing things to talk about and things that we haven't talked about before. Let's dive in. So this is double play Spirea, okay? Double play Spirea. And this is I want to say it's in a 5-gallon pot. So that's why at $39.84 for a 5-gallon proven winners is a decent price, right? For retail, that would be a good price because it's probably 50 other places, full retail. It's $10 off, not a bad deal. So this is the double play. This one, which I like a little bit more, is the double play candy corn. And so you can see it's got that red new growth just like this one does, but look, when you look at them next to each other, significant difference between the two, right? So double play candy corn. And I don't really know the genetics. I don't know if one is a sport of the other, but you can definitely see these red tips, that red new growth. I don't think you'd be disappointed with either way you went. I do think that the candy corn is the prettier of the two, double play candy corns. Regular double play is 1.5 to 2.5 feet tall and wide, and the double play candy corn is the same. So they both come to the same price, or they both come to the same size. Now let's talk price. This double play, $39 in a 5-gallon, is maybe a 2-gallon for $39.84. Big difference price-wise. Like, that one's 3 gallons larger for the same price. But look how pretty that is. It's pretty. A little frustrating that something that pretty is going to be that much more expensive. Now, some of these Spirea are getting powdery mildew. I don't know if you can see that. Powdery mildew on there. Some neem oil, which they most likely sell here, could clean that up, but it will take some time. We just need some heat. We're getting pretty cool nights, and so a lot of this Spirea, with the exception of the double plays, and I don't know how long they've been here, but they also have water droplets and they do overhead watering. So what I used to do in my nursery, if I could remember and the day wasn't getting too crazy, is I'd go out there with my blower and I would just blow the droplets off of all my plants first thing in the morning. And it seemed to help. In conjunction with fungicides, I could keep everything looking good. But it does take some work. Here is something really cool, and I don't usually see this variety of clematis very often. Princess Diana clematis. Now, this is a big one, like a 10-footer, so it's not a shrubby clematis. Some of them will do that. You just train those as a rambler just across the ground. When they don't get very big, like 6 feet, you can do that. I'm really tempted to get this. It's $19.84 for a 1-gallon, which is a little crazy. Some of these are in bloom. Look at this one. This is called multi-blue clematis. Look how pretty that is. That is a very pretty clematis. Now, I can tell you from experience, if you can see all of these clematis in here, this is going to become an absolute nightmare here in about 2 weeks. They need to sell them or they need to separate them because they are going to be all up in each other's business and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. We're almost there now. It's close. Most of these are going to be in the pruning group 2, which means they're going to bloom on old and new growth and old growth. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to, I mean, I guess you'd be okay at this point. You could just trim all of the foliage down after it blooms, trim it just down to the ground after it blooms, and then it would have time to be considered old wood by next year. This one is called the Rogue Cardinal Clematis. We had the multi-blue clematis, which was $19.84, and this is $19.84 also, and Rogue Cardinal Clematis. Very pretty. A little bit more of a dark purple than say the Jacqueminot. I really think that Princess Diana, the only issue that I have is I really have no place to put them. That's the frustrating part about it. Hey, looky here. Look at the size of this standard lilac. So this is a bloomerang, which I like, a little bit more disease resistant. They still smell so good. And I believe this is $184, $148. Now this is in like a 10 or 7 gallon. It's in a 7 gallon. I cheated. I want to let you guys know I cheated. I saw it on one of those other tags. Very pretty. Look at this, right? So it's in a 7 gallon pot. So right now, the top of this is 6 feet. I always look, if I'm looking for a standard lilac, which are very easy to use. They're pretty hardy. Yeah, 4 to 6 feet tall. And when these are happy and they've had some legacy behind them, you know, like they've been there for a couple years, they're unstoppable. You want to stop trimming them around July. So July is probably the last time I will trim a lilac because they bloom on old wood. So I want to have all the blooms. I want all the blooms in the spring when it comes to lilacs because they smell so good and they're so pretty. So that is the rub with this bloomerang, and this would be considered a bloomerang on a standard versus just a regular like 2 or 3 gallon bloomerang that you could find. It would still get 6 feet tall, and these prune really well. I'm a fan of the lilac. Now this looks like an actual lilac tree. Any indicator, like a sign, but this would be the lilac tree. This is not a lilac tree. This is a lilac bush on a standard, is how we would refer to that. This is an actual lilac tree, like ivory silk is a lilac tree. Here's one. See, you get those lilac style blooms. I'm a fan. I do like the lilac trees for sure. They're pretty, but it's an old school landscaping tree, but they do really well. I mean, in our zone, they don't have an issue at all. Uh-oh, we're in hydrangea trees. I'm about to go on a tirade. I can already see it. So I am helping a friend of mine do some landscaping at his house. I'm doing it pro bono. And when I say helping, I'm pretty sure I'm doing all of it because he's a finance guy. He's never at home. And so I'm gonna be the one that is gonna do this just so we can get it done and make it look good. And I'm filming it, so I will be able to help you guys. So far I've just marked out the beds. We're still waiting on a locate, but there is a spot for a hydrangea tree that I think would be real pretty. And when it comes to hydrangea trees, I'm kind of an elitist a-hole. Let's just put it like that. I will never, ever, ever plant another limelight tree. What I will do is plant a quick fire tree. And the reason is because when I get hit with the summer storms with this guy, it's not gonna lay down like it just got done watching a B movie Tyrese is in. This is gonna stay up and it's gonna stay upright. These limelights and little lime trees are gonna fall down. As soon as those summer storms hit those panicles and those panicles are mature, it's gonna lay down. That just is what it is with the limelight. Now, there is, as far as I'm concerned, no exception to that. I did prune mine differently this year, and they seemed, or last year, doing some experiments, they did seem to do better, but we didn't have as much rain. So it's kind of one of those things. But I will take the quick fire every single day of the week from now on. Maybe in y'all's area it's different, right? But in my area, Missouri is the show me state, and it's gonna show you some passion when those thunderstorms roll in, and they're gonna beat up, and they're just gonna lay down, and if those branches are too heavy, they're just gonna roll them, and they'll split. And then they'll heal because they're tougher than nails, but that's kind of the rub with those. So this quick fire is $128.74, and that's a pretty decent price. This isn't a very high graft. If you can see, I have to bend down, so this is the top of it. That's not a very high graft. I would much rather them be higher than that, but it is what it is. But I think that would be a really pretty addition. And these are a little far ahead. They're already starting to push buds. Mine just leafed out like 3 weeks ago, so these are almost June. Start seeing buds on your hydrangeas. In my neck of the woods, it's June-ish. Hydrangea trees, man, it's like they're ordering plants like I order plants. You got a ton of limelights and a ton of little quick fires, and everything I do is talking somebody out of limelights so I can sell them little quick fires. And then the people that won't listen to me, they buy the limelights. The people that listen to me, they buy the quick fires. Okay, I'm only gonna harass you guys for a little bit longer. This is the Invincibelle Wee White. For all intents and purposes, a mini Incrediball. So it's a arborescens, I believe. I don't mess with them very often, and I have to admit I have not, oh, it's not even, yes, arborescens. I'm not gonna pretend that I've ever given these a shot. I have never given them a shot because in the nursery setting, as soon as these buds reach maturity and they overhead water here, they're gonna lay down. And so what would happen at that point is I would just cut them at 8 inches, and then they would reflush and they wouldn't have any blooms on them, and then I could sell them. With blooms on them, falling all over the place, they just didn't sell well for me, so I never gave them a shot because I didn't want them to do that in the landscape. Here is the alternative to that. Oak leaf ruby slipper. And the oak leaf ruby slipper is gonna get a little bit bigger. It's only gonna get like 3 feet, 3 by 3. Or do like a tiny quickfire or something like that, because it's not gonna break your heart. Give it a shot. If anybody in the comments has had the Invincibell wee white and has had good success with that, not falling over, maybe that's something we need to get out there, because right now we're just going off of what I'm saying, and I never had any luck with them in the nursery. They just kept on falling over. So that's a lot of where my opinion came from, because I didn't even try it. I didn't even give it a shot. And one more thing I wanted to talk about was the climbing hydrangea. So this is a 1 gallon Monrovia climbing hydrangea. Climbing hydrangeas, I don't believe, are patented anymore. So this is 2474. Don't forget about climbing hydrangeas when it comes to the ability to ramble. These will ramble across the ground. They'll crawl across, rip-rap. They'll do all of that stuff. I planted some, and they're pretty tough. I planted some in some relatively dense shade to grow on a brick wall, not connected to somebody's house. It was actually just a freestanding wall that was brick that separated the property from the road, the public road. It's somewhat of a rich person complex, but I planted all this hydrangea vine up against the wall, and it is still there to this day. It's crawled up top. It started to, splay out. What a beautiful addition to that wall. It's so pretty, and it's not crazy invasive like English ivy, so you still get to see the character of the brick because it's deciduous. I don't know. Pretty big fan. It went really, really well. We used 2-year fertilizer tablets and the things just took off. All right, everybody, it's getting a little crazy. It's getting a little busy. There's lots to talk about here. My name's Stuart Moore. This is Landscape Rescue, and thank you very much for letting me into your house to talk about plants. All right, so I got really, really lucky. One of the employees recognized me and walked over and said, "Hey, we got those autumn color rudbeckia in." I was walking out the door, crazy. So guess what? They have 2 flats and they're coming home with me. These are $2.84 a piece, and I don't care. I think I will probably plant 1 flat at my house, and then I'll go plant the other one at Affinity Estates, and that will be my Affinity Estates donation for this year. All right.